Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next workshop in our Business Beyond the Classroom series. We're really excited that you're here and we have a great speaker. I wanted to first, though, introduce the two other professors that put this series of presentations together because it does indeed take a team effort. So on our call are Professor Tran and Professor Kabilas. And some of you may recognize them, but we put together the Business Beyond the Classroom series every semester. So you have an opportunity to learn from people outside in the business world, obviously outside the classroom. I'm excited to announce we have a great speaker backed by popular demand to talk about cybersecurity. And if you give me just a second, I can't, as many of you know, can't remember everything. So I'm going to read his bio, which is quite impressive. And then he's going to speak for a few minutes. So Matthew Schmuck, Mr. Schmuck, has worked in the technology sector for over 35 years. His first successful company was founded in 1990 as a technology consulting practice, which grew to over 100 employees and ran for 22 years. Matthew saw engagements with IBM, Intel, B of A, Wells Fargo, and Stanford, some big names, to name a few. In 1999, Matthew and several colleges started a software company focusing in the healthcare industry, which ran for 13 years. One of his greatest joys was running a grassroots business incubator. Matthew created and chaired these projects twice in the mid-2000s, where 12 new businesses were spawned out of 20 total participants. Matthew also worked through 2 acquisitions, owned a sports bar and grill, and founded a nonprofit focusing on coral reef preservation that is still in operation today. Matthew is currently Chief Information Officer at Western Allied Mechanical and serves on several boards of directors in the Bay Area. He is very knowledgeable, as you will find out, about cybersecurity. We are asking that if you do have questions, if you don't forget them, like I may, put your questions in chat, and then Matthew will answer all your questions at the end. But with that, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Schmuck. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Professor Worsham. I really appreciate that. Can you guys hear me okay? Great. Okay. Let me share my screen real quick. I don't have a specific slideshow, but I do have some notes that I'm going to work through as we do this. Okay. Imagine, if you would, that you guys are all business owners. And tomorrow you walk into your office. It could be a retail store, a restaurant, it could be a business office. And the first thing you do is fire up your computer and log in, and you can't. You're getting an error message, you can't log in. And you try 3 or 4 times, and of course everybody gets frustrated, starts pounding on their computer. You call your IT person and you say, hey, I can't get in today. The IT person starts poking around. None of the systems are available. None of the data is available. Every time you click on a Word document, Excel file, a database, a finance package, it all comes back with errors. This is what I do every day to try to protect my company from that scenario. That's known as ransomware. That's the big hit these days for cybersecurity folks. And I spend all my time protecting our company's data. In the old days, the bad guys were really good at breaking into systems, hacking firewalls, hacking networks, hacking computers. Nowadays, all they have to do is send an email with a bad attachment or a bad link that runs code in the background that you don't realize, and it opens a back door to your systems. Okay, so that's the scenario I protect my company from every day. That's the big fear that everybody has in the cyberspace these days. 70% of ransomware is coming from overseas into the US, and it's big money. We'll get into details, and I'll detail out one of the very specific ransomware hits that we saw back in 2019 in my industry. Bear with me here. Well, what do you know? I'm sorry about this. Okay, so today I probably spend 50% of my time checking our systems, making sure that our employees are behaving properly in our network, making sure that all of our systems are up to date. That's really the big crux of cybersecurity. Once you're hit, it's almost too late. That's really tough once you've been targeted. Most bad guys now are doing blanket hits where they'll send out 1 million emails and maybe half of 1% of those million emails will click on a bad link or a bad attachment. So it's kind of a scattergun approach. I've told our executive board many times that if we're ever directly targeted by a really sophisticated hacker group, there's almost no chance we'll get away. We'll undoubtedly have to pay the ransom to get out of that. Today, it's so bad. It's worse than ever. Our government is reacting to this. There's all kinds of new agencies and new funding going into cybersecurity. Of course, everybody's heard about what's going on with Ukraine and Russia, and everybody's worried about the Russian hackers right now causing havoc across the globe. Here's what I deal with on a daily basis. This is kind of what I see come through my general inbox. These kind of hits and targets are constant now. In fact, there's so much bad traffic on the internet. It's being referred to as internet radiation now. So it's a tough road right now to be a cybersecurity person. If you're going to be in the business world, the employees really have to help protect the company. You can't leave it all on the technology department's shoulders. So the weakest link tends to be those employees that click before thinking. And we'll get into those details in a bit. Once again, these aren't slides. This is just so I stay on task here, you guys. Basically, these are the attacks we see most often. Ransomware, which I'll detail a full attack here in a few minutes. Malware is a general term, like virus is now a general term. Any piece of software that was written to do damage or destruction or open up backdoors is known as malware. Most of that malware and ransomware are all done through phishing attempts in email. So phishing is where an email comes in, poses to be somebody else that it really isn't, and tricks you into clicking on a link in the email or a bad attachment. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm in a new building and the lights just went out. I hope I'm not too dark. Denial of service attacks have been around forever. A denial of service attack is when threat actors have amassed a large botnet. Let's say it's 500,000 computers that they have remote control over. They tell all 500,000 computers to go hit dvc.edu at once and continue to hit dvc.edu every second for the next 24 hours. Well, anybody that is really trying to get to dvc.edu won't be able to because that website is now busied out responding to fake requests. That's the denial of service attack. Those aren't as popular as they used to be, but they still happen. 0 days are flaws in software that have not been patched yet, aren't known. The bad guys have found a backdoor somewhere. Nobody knows about it yet, and they take advantage of that and they exploit it. Trojans are bad software posing as good software. This happens really a lot. We'll talk about free software, free apps on phones. It's so bad right now. All that stuff is not good. I'll give you some details on how to avoid them. A worm is a piece of software that will get in your network and then try to move laterally between all of your workstations, your network. And worms are used after people get into the network so they can map out your whole network. And of course, credential stuffing. This is all about the passwords and how passwords have been stolen and reused, things like that. I'm kind of rambling a little fast here. I apologize. Ransomware, of course, is the #1 hit that we see right now in corporate America. Here's what happens. You walk in, like I said in the beginning, one day, all your computer systems are down, all your data is inaccessible, it's all encrypted, and you don't have the unencryption keys. The threat actors will email or send a message somehow to executive staff saying, pay us $2.5 million, We'll give you your unencryption keys back so you can get your data back and get back to work. There's a lot more to it that is just all bad. It used to be in the old days, the viruses were all about destruction. It was more about stealing credentials and data. Now it's all extortion. We own your data now, and the only way you can get it back is if you pay us the ransom. And they usually put a time limit on it, like you have 24 hours to pay us $2.5 million in Bitcoin. By the way, if you don't have a Bitcoin wallet yet, like most older executives probably don't, it takes time to set that up. It takes time to go buy the Bitcoin. It takes time to get the transfer to the bad guy's wallet, and you got 24 hours. So what the bad guys tell you, if you don't pay within 24 hours, we're going to destroy the unencryption keys so you can never get your data back. Oh, wait, Matt, what if we have backups? We can just restore from backups. Well, take my company that I'm at now. We're not a huge company. We're just over 100 million in revenue. But if I had to restore everything from tape, it's going to take me 2.5 weeks. It's going to take a long time. By the way, the bad guys are smart too. They're going to encrypt your backups if they can get to them. Okay. In 2019, one of our competitors in the Bay Area had one of their employees, I believe it was a project manager, open a PDF file and email. It looked like a PDF file. The employee clicked on it, nothing happened, it didn't open. Clicked on it again, nothing happened, it didn't open. He just went about his day after that. What happened was it installed a piece of software in the background that the employee didn't know about. It's called a remote access Trojan. Once that software is installed, that workstation notifies a command and control server somewhere out in the world on the internet and says, hey, I'm now alive. And now the bad guys will remote into this workstation and issue commands. So in this particular case, the bad guys spent about 6 months mapping out that company's entire network, all the workstations, all the switches, routers, storage, backups. And then one Friday night, the bad guys had enough information to act on it, and they started encrypting all of the company's data, all of their backups. So sure enough, over the weekend and come Monday, they realized there's something wrong. Even their email was completely blown up. The bad guys sent them a note and said, in this case, it wasn't as expensive as what we see now. The bad guys sent them a note and said, hey, for $250,000, we'll give you the unencryption keys. So the company calls the FBI, right? The FBI gets involved. They start trying to track down the bad guys. But in the meantime, the only option the company had was to pay these folks. So they paid them the $250,000. And luckily, the bad guys went ahead and gave them the unencryption keys, because many of the bad guys just don't even bother with that. They just take the money and run. In this case, the encryption tools that the bad guys were using were not that great. And a lot of the data could not be unencrypted. It was corrupting the files. So they almost had to start from scratch. They were offline for 3 full weeks. Employees were struggling to get any work done using their personal email addresses, phone calls for everything, text messages for everything. Their systems were so infected, they basically had to buy new gear, right? This company had 800 employees. At the end of the day, their reputation took a huge hit because they just weren't secure. Like, for instance, my company, we restricted any email coming from that company for 3 or 4 months until we were sure that they were back up and running. The chief operating officer told me that they probably lost $5.5 million. The reputation hit is unmeasurable, right? I'm sure people, well, I'm sure people are still talking about that and think twice about doing business with them because they allowed themselves to be hit that bad. Okay, so that's ransomware. It's all about extortion. Now, ransomware, by the way, some 3 years later, they're also taking the data before they encrypt it and they copy it all. That way they have an extra bit of leverage. So if you don't pay the ransom, not only will they encrypt your data, but they'll expose your data to the public. So this happened just a few years ago to Sony Movies. You may have seen it in the news. And a bunch of the email that the Sony executives had was a little bit damaging. And that actually got put out on the dark web for people to grab and see. Crazy bit of business. This is what my sole task in life is at my job, is to try to protect us from this kind of scenario. Okay, let's run through my daily activities. My job sounds pretty easy. All I have to do is protect the data. The problem is the data is everywhere and it has to be available 24/7. And now, especially in corporate America, people want to work on their personal cell phone and their personal tablet and their personal laptop and their work laptop and their work desktop. And oh, by the way, I want to work when I'm in Hawaii at the hotel and I'm on the hotel Wi-Fi, or I want to go to the Starbucks and get on their Wi-Fi and work. All of that is bad news for trying to protect the data. It's a real challenge, right? Because it's everywhere. That's what I spend my days working on. The executives love me for that. I'm not going to win. I've told them many times, if we're ever targeted, we're going to have to go through this slog to get our data back. Now, in my case, and a lot of IT executives, we know that backups are our last line of defense. So we have extensive backups, and we have backups that are backed up off-site, and we have backups that we take monthly that we actually disconnect from our systems. So worst case scenario, if we got hit so bad that we couldn't recover, we would basically go to one of these off-site backups, start restoring data. We have a whole path on which data we restore first, the most critical business data, the finance data, we can make payroll, et cetera. When you guys are all business owners, yes, you have to worry about this stuff. So that's my job. Now, the only way for me to keep up with this is I have to constantly monitor everything. Luckily, the cybersecurity tools these days are really automated. So I have hundreds of logs that I see every day, but it's all consolidated. So I'm only seeing the bad stuff. And, I have help doing this as well, but it's so hard to stay vigilant and stay on top of it. It's a constant struggle. And, you'd hate to see your company lose 5 million or more. Some of the bigger exploits that we've had in the past few years have been 100 million, those kind of hits to billion-dollar companies. It's really challenging. We're not even talking about personal stuff yet. I'm not even talking about your personal email or your cell phones. This is all just business related. It all comes down to what you click on. Because the easy play for the bad guys is, once again, to send out mass emails with bad attachments and bad links. And a lot of times they look really legitimate. We're going to talk about cell phones in a little minute. And on your cell phone, who's all getting texts now for sales? And there's always links in those texts. You don't know where those links are going. So I advise my customers all the time, if you get some sort of sales or link in a text, you just can't click on it. If you can tell the company happens to be, we'll use Sony again, and maybe they're pushing a new movie, well, then go to Sony's website directly on your browser. Don't use that link that's presented to you. The bad guys know how to spoof everybody. So at our company, a day doesn't go by that some number of our employees get an email from our CEO. And the email always says something like, hey, I'm in a meeting. I need a quick favor. Can you please help me? And if you respond, you're not responding to our CEO. You're actually responding to the bad guys. Some applications for email, you can actually see the full email address, not the name. So on email, I can have my name, Matthew Schmuck, but I could have Tom Jones at yahoo.com as the actual email address, and you wouldn't know. Outlook, Microsoft's product, is really good at seeing the name and the email address. On your cell phone, it's not. All you see is the name. If you want to see who it really came from, you actually have to click on the name to see the email address. At our company, one of our employees got hit like this. he got a fake email from our CEO, and it said exactly the same thing I just mentioned. I'm in a meeting all day. I want to do a favor for some of the employees. And our employee responded, sure, it's the boss. Of course, I'm going to respond. Of course. What do you need? Hey, I need 5 $100 gift cards. I'm going to surprise some employees today. That's kind of an odd request, right? You have to use your gut feel a little bit here. Well, our employee went ahead and said, sure, I'll go get them, and went and bought 5 $100 Amazon cards, right? Responds back to the fake CEO, still thinks it's the CEO. I got the cards. What would you like me to do? And the fake CEO said, hey, scratch off the backs and take pictures. I'm just going to email this to them so they can use it online. And of course, our employee did that. So the bad guy now has our employee on hook, right? After that first $500, the bad guy went for broke and said, hey, can I get another card for $500? And at that point, our employee finally paused, started looking closer at everything, and saw the bad email address, even though it had the correct name of our CEO. Tough. That's all social engineering stuff. Man, we get hit with that constantly. And I spend a large amount of my time, at least weekly, training our employees. I send emails, basically. Here's what to watch out for. Here's what's hot this week. Right now, we're in the middle of tax season. So tax fraud scams are everywhere. Hey, file your taxes with us. And it'll say like TurboTax or HR Block. It's not really them. Click this link. We'll get your refund to you within 12 hours. You know, people get excited about that, and it's all fake. And the bad guys are actually taking those refunds. So that's what's one of the things that's really hot right now. Okay, let's get into your personal stuff and how you can protect yourself. Anybody with grandparents or older parents even, this is great stuff that you can help them with. I know my parents are the same way. I constantly have to tell them, hey, what are you clicking on? Don't do that. If it sounds too good to be true, it almost always is, right? Okay, first rule of thumb, don't click. And at our company, it's not just don't click. If you weren't expecting a link or an attachment, even from a trusted source, what we find is many people in our industry, our vendors, our partners, they get hacked, and we get emails from them that have bad links, attachments. And even though they're trusted sources and we know them, we weren't expecting this attachment. They could have been hacked. That happens all the time as well. So not only do we try to tell everybody just don't click, but you have to be expecting it. And if you weren't, you have to go back and verify it's real with that vendor or partner or whoever it might be. This happens with family all the time. How many people here have gotten that email that just has a link in the body and that's it, right? Just some gobbledygook link. Well, somebody's inbox got hacked and the bad guys sent that link out to everybody in their contact list, hoping somebody would click on it. So a rule of thumb, don't click unless you were expecting it. If you weren't expecting, you have to verify. Email is so insecure now. It is the #1 communication tool in the business world, and it can't be trusted. Okay, social engineering. I was talking about our employee a minute ago who went through and bought 5 $100 gift cards. By the way, with gift cards, there's no recourse. You can't call somebody and say, hey, I was duped. Can you cancel these cards? It doesn't work like that. Once those cards are out, they're gone, you're out of the money. If you use a debit card and your debit card gets compromised, the bad guys can, extract money directly out of your checking or savings account with that debit card number. Once again, you have no recourse. In America, though, if you use a credit card, you can actually claim fraud and stop payment. So we're one of the only countries that still do this with credit cards. A lot of other countries, you're responsible for even having the card stolen. But in America, that's the only way you can get back your money is if you're actually using a credit card and you catch some fraudulent charges. Okay, social engineering. Social engineering isn't just through email these days, it's also through phone calls and text messages. And social engineering tries to get you to perform an action you normally wouldn't do through emotions. So the email where our guy bought the 5 $100 gift cards, that the emotions in that email were, first, it was impersonation, it was trust, right? You trust the CEO, but also the message says, hey, this is urgent. I'm in a meeting all day. Can you help me? So it's this urgency emotion. There's 4 basic emotions. It's trust, impersonation, fear, and urgency. All by themselves, just one of these, people don't usually react. But if you can couple 2 of them together, people will usually react. So here's a scam that's been going around for a while. An employee will get an email from some random person, and the email says, hey, I know who you are. I can prove I know who you are because here's one of your passwords. You can buy people's passwords on the dark web for pennies. So you're proving that you know that Jane Doe, and this is one of Jane Doe's old passwords. So now they've, it's trust, right? Okay, this guy's for real. By the way, we were able to remotely turn on your camera, and we have footage of you watching pornography. And if you don't pay me $900 in Bitcoin, I'm going to release that footage to everybody in your contact list. Well, now it's fear. So those 2 emotions, trust and fear together, people start to panic. They start to freak out. This is strictly a scam. I'm not sure if any of you have seen this, but it's clever. It gets people to react. People get a little worried. Could this really be real? It's not. It's a scam. That's how social engineering works. Another big scam that's going around right now is the fake phone calls from, say, Microsoft. Hi, this is Matthew Schmuck. Hi, this is Microsoft. Hey, we noticed that you have a virus on your system and we can see the bad data coming across our network. Do you mind if we fix that for you? Well, of course, sure. It's a virus on my computer. Okay, well, we need to do remote control to install our antivirus software. Okay, go ahead. All of that is fake. That is not Microsoft's tech support. Okay, along those lines, we're starting to see emails now. One of them that we've been seeing a lot of lately, it says, oh, hey, this is Microsoft, and we see you have 12 emails that were not delivered. Call this number, 1-800-whatever, to talk to Microsoft tech support so we can fix this for you. Well, if you call that number, they answer the phone, hello, support. It's not Microsoft, and they're going to take you down the same path. Some of them even say, well, for $60, we'll sell you our antivirus software, and you can install it. Well, the software they give you to install, plus you paid them $60, the software is a remote access Trojan. So the bad guys can get into your system and do further damage. So these social engineering scams are happening all over the place these days. These mostly come from email, phone calls. It's really a challenge now in that the bad guys used to do this all in person. We used to worry about people breaking into our buildings. Our employees would have their passwords on Post-its on their monitors and stuff. That's really not a worry anymore. That's way too hard when they can attack you straight through email or text message. Okay, here is one of the biggest problems we have in the industry: passwords. Passwords are so flawed. How many people here have the same 3 passwords they use everywhere at every website? That's how most people are. It's how most of the people we see at work are. And I talk to everybody about having a different password at every website they visit. But how can you do that? How can you remember all of those? Well, specifically, you have to have a password vault. And the password vaults these days, like LastPass or OnePass, I happen to use RoboForm. I'm not sure if you can see at the top of my screen here. These tools have a master password to unlock them. But then I must have 600 passwords. I've been doing this for so long. Every one of my passwords is different because I have them in a password locker. So I don't have to remember them. I just use my RoboForm tool, and LastPass and OnePass are very good as well. And it'll remember the passwords for me and put them in the websites for me on my phone. It's in the cloud, so I get it everywhere. In fact, my wife and I share it as well, because if one of us were to get hit by a bus, how would your spouse be able to get into your accounts to, take care of business? It's always a challenge if you have to call a bank and say, hey, my spouse passed away and I need into their accounts. Of course, the banks are going to be leery of this scam. They're going to say, can you prove it? And if you're grieving, that's really painful to do. Passwords are such a challenge. I can't wait till we get to the point that your phone is your password or a biometric through the phone. And that's starting. I mean, we see fingerprint and face unlock on phones, but a lot of the apps aren't quite there yet. It's coming. The second we can stop trying to remember passwords, the better. On the darknet right now, you can buy hundreds of thousands of passwords. I'm sure you can buy mine because so many of the sites I've used throughout my career have all been hacked. LinkedIn was a big one. They lost 110 million passwords 5-6 years ago, 2016, something like that maybe. But my password at LinkedIn was unique. It's not the password I use at B of A or Wells Fargo. So that's one of the things they do is the bad guys will get your password from one site and start trying them on other sites, and they'll get lucky. There's been a bunch of hacks on Discord lately, so you have to be careful what you put in chat services. People will break into a channel, start scraping data. They start searching for passwords or PW. They'll get your password, your name off of the Discord, and they'll start trying it on websites. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, is helping. That service has gotten much bigger. A lot of sites use that now, and I highly recommend it. There are some exploits to multi-factor authentication. So not only do you put your password in, but then they text you a PIN or they send you an email with a number. So it's 2 factors of authentication, something your password, and something they're going to give you, a challenge response. Some of them use questions that you have to answer. Those are still the best way to go. I wish we were 100% phone authentication through biometrics, but we'll get there. This is one of my biggest challenges at work. And as a business owner, you future business owners, that'll be one of your biggest challenges. Everybody has to have passwords for everything right now. And telling an employee, please don't use your same outside password that you use at TikTok or Yahoo or wherever at our company, because when those sites get hacked, and I can see that Matthew Schmuck works at Western Allied, I'm going to start trying his email address and that password at Western Allied to see if I can get in, maybe through their VPN. That's a challenge for all of us. Okay, password vaults, LastPass, OnePass, RoboForm. Those are my favorite 3. I happen to like RoboForm. I've been using it for 15 years probably, and it saves me. I don't have 2 passwords the same anywhere. That's a huge plus for me. Password algorithms. I want to explain this without boring you to death. Early on, before password vaults, I created an algorithm for my passwords because I didn't want my same password everywhere because they get stolen. It's been happening for years. The way that works is you're gonna, let's say, so my initials are MPS, and let's say my home address is 1234, my street number, right? Okay, so I'm going to go to Amazon.com, the word Amazon. I'm going to create, let's say I'm going to take MPS, my initials, and intersperse it with the first 3 letters of the URL I'm going to, like Amazon. So it'll be AM, MP, AS. So the first 6 characters don't look like Amazon at all. AM, right? MP, AS. And then let's say the next 4 letters you just replace with your street number, 1234. So now that 10-digit password I just created from this algorithm, I'm going to intersperse the first 3 letters, replace the next 4 letters with my number, 1234. You can do this any way you want, any shape or form you want. You can be very creative here, but that works because now all I have to remember is my algorithm. When I go to Amazon.com, the algorithm is the same at Wells Fargo. WMEPLS1234, Wells Fargo, GO at the end. Makes sense? The password changes at each site. All I have to remember is the algorithm. If anybody wants real examples of this, I'd be more than happy to share them with Professor Tran and Professor Worsham, and they can distribute them to you guys. You can also Google this. It's been around for a long time. Highly recommend using that. Multi-factor authentication. Doggone it, just this week, Cisco and Duo, two big players in the cybersecurity space, had a flaw that was exploited and defeated multi-factor authentication. So we know that gets hit quite a bit, but it's still better than not using MFA. Chances are, if your MFA gets compromised, let's say it's to your bank, somebody was probably targeting you directly. That's one of my biggest fears. I never want to, get on the bad side of the bad guys. I don't ever talk bad about the bad guys directly because there's bunches of groups of them out there, because I don't want to be a target ever. SIM swapping on phones. I'm not sure if anybody has heard about this. This is a real big problem. You can take and create a second SIM, the same SIM you have in your phone, put it in another phone, and then when the MFA challenge comes through on text messages, you get that text message with that MFA. So that's a real tough one as well. Those attacks are also very targeted. And what happens is a runner will go to a Verizon store. The runner will pretend to be shopping. The second the supervisor puts down his tablet, they grab the tablet, they run out to the car, they have a reader in the car to read the tablet, so they get a bunch of SIMs that they need right away. They have to know the phone number for the SIMs they want. That's why it's targeted. And they'll pump out a bunch of SIMs before the branch manager that had his tablet stolen reports it to corporate, and corporate disables that tablet. So they usually get about 10 or 15 minutes, and they can get about 50 SIMs out of that. And if you're like, our executives get targeted all the time for bad email and stuff like that. So that's such a challenge. MFA is still better than nothing, though. Okay, long-winded. I've been going at this for 35 minutes. I'd love to sit and talk about your questions. Bear with me just a second. You guys can't see where I'm at, but I'm in a brand new building, 600 feet long, 200 feet wide, 130,000 square feet. And a little while ago, the lights went out, and I think the air conditioner went out, and it's got to be 100 degrees in here. It's killing me. Okay, let me go through some questions real quick. Anybody have any direct questions they want to throw out to me?
I have a question. Hi, thanks for the talk.
Hi, Nancy.
This is Nancy. Hi. What do you think of giving your social security number to PayPal? I'm
Oh my
hesitant.
gosh. You know what? I totally forgot to talk about that, and in general, apps on your cell phone. So number one, identity theft is still a problem. I read not too long ago that an identity is stolen every 2 minutes in the US. Once your identity is stolen and people are using it, it is still a real challenge to get out of that, right? Okay, any site that asks for your social security number should be challenged. And I've had services that I've asked for my social that I declined to give to them, and I can't use their service. Now, this happens to me on cell phones all the time. I'll give you a really good example. My wife and I just visited Hawaii. Ta-da, Hawaii shirt. We were there for a week, had fun. To get into Hawaii right now, you have to fill out the Hawaiian Health State Board process, right? Because of COVID. And you have to put an app on your phone to do this companion app. The companion app, you know how this is when you install an app and it says, hey, by the way, do you allow me to read your contacts, to read your photos, to read your email? Yes, everybody just clicks yes. They never even stop. I said no, and the app wouldn't install. So I had to literally turn that on, knowing that the Hawaii state government running this app, or by the way, these companies have pretty much good intentions, but if they're hacked, the bad guys are going to scrape that data. So I had to put that app on. Once we arrived in Hawaii, I instantly uninstalled that app. I don't want them to go after my data. At our company, we use a little app called Lookout. It's a security app we have some 290 mobile devices, cell phones and tablets. Every one of them has this Lookout app. This app, managed by us, we get daily notices of companies' cell phones and tablets that are having data scraped from them. So a good example, just the other day, the CEO popped up on this list. So I called Zach. I said, hey, what's going on with your cell phone? I'm getting this notice. He goes, yeah, I got a weird pop-up when I was playing solitaire. Oh, you installed a free solitaire. In the background, free solitaire was scraping data off his phone. What websites have you visited? What's your contact list, right? What have you bought lately through Google Pay? So these apps are horrific that way. You always have to think before you just click accept. Is that free app, that free game, worth you giving up your personal data? The app isn't free. They're going to take that personal data of yours and they're going to sell it, right? That's how they're making money. They can't write an app for free and never get paid. So they're relying on your data. Of course, Google and Yahoo and Bing, they all do the same thing. They scrape your data. They sell that data off. Cell phones are particularly bad right now. And you have to decide, do I really want TikTok? Because TikTok, especially in the early days, was really known for scraping data. You sure? You sure it's worth it? Do you want them to know you were buying diapers for your mom? It's tough. It's tough. Good question, Nancy.
Yeah, I have just one follow-up on that. If I gave my Social Security to PayPal and then stopped accepting money from them, they still are going to always have my social, right? Like once I jump in, I can't jump out.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. And the problem isn't PayPal as much as the people that have hacked PayPal. Mm-hmm. By the way, you just brought up PayPal. How many people have had the fake PayPal emails? Oh, hey, here's a charge for $167. Wait, I didn't buy anything for $167. The email says, hey, click here to see the purchase. Hey, it doesn't take you to PayPal, right? It's taking you somewhere else. Anyway, yeah, once you give the data up, it's out there. You cannot be anonymous online. It is nearly impossible. Any other questions?
We have a question from someone in the chat. What do you see as the next big security threat?
Well, here's my fear. So right now, ransomware is a financial grab, right? It's extortion, right? We have your data and you're going to pay us or you're not going to have your data. And as a business, by the way, and hopefully you guys are all future entrepreneurs in the business program, man, data is everything. That's the total value. We're a construction company. Forget about the construction. It's all of our data that's valuable, right? All of the online engineering we do, the customer interactions we do, the CRM, all that is so valuable to us. Even the equipment is throwaway compared to the data. I'm worried, especially with the Russian-Ukraine thing going on. If the bad guys can get in and hold your data hostage, in the early days of hacking, people would get in and just be malicious and destroy data. I'm worried there's going to be attacks like that. And a lot of them are state sponsored. Iran has attacked US corporations before. It's tough. And the US have attacked other people. One of the greatest hacks of all time called Stuxnet. If you haven't had a chance to Google Stuxnet, STUX, there's a really good free documentary out there. It's like 30 minutes. That is probably the best hack software package ever written that broke into the Iranian nuclear facility and destroyed centrifuges, the process to enrich uranium. And the US and Israeli governments wrote that together. That's what's predicted. I mean, people are saying that's what happened, but there's no real proof. Anyway, I'm worried about destruction. I'm worried about people, getting upset and just, hey, we're just going to destroy corporate data like crazy, especially the banking industry, the medical industry, stuff like that. Hospitals that get hit by ransomware right now are in big trouble because if you happen to have to go to an emergency room and they can't pull up your chart, and they can't even check you in on the computer. They got a piece of paper. They're writing down your temperature and everything on paper. I mean, the process is so slow, right? In the current war climate in Russia, is U.S. cybersecurity strong enough to protect against power grid and fuel line attacks? Well, no. What about the pipeline on the East Coast that just got hit a year and a half ago? Everybody heard about that? They shut down that pipeline. That was an attack. Our infrastructure computing systems are far behind. And a lot of those aging systems run on PLCs and old basic computers. In fact, just the other day, I met with an old friend of mine, and his company is running their systems on an old DOS AS400, like 1985 system. They're still running their business that way, but they're at risk, right? That's a real problem. So yeah, we're not prepared enough. I know we're trying to get there fast, but we're not ready. Any other questions?
Were you talking about the Florida, Miami, the pipeline that got hacked into?
I'm drawing a blank on the name of the pipeline, but it was definitely all over the news. And if you looked at, searched on pipeline hack in the US, you would find it. And, gas stations were running low on gas and prices started to escalate because that was compromised. It was definitely several weeks of compromise.
Oh, I was talking about the water line that got hacked into.
You're absolutely right. I heard about that as well. Now that wasn't the pipeline was a state-sponsored attack. The water system that was attacked in Florida was an individual. And yeah, he was able to get into the system and change the mix of chemicals they use in the water system to make it, bad, right? I'd forgotten about that. Thanks, Jorge.
Yeah. I also got another question. Do you know Michael Miller?
Yes, I do. Michael Miller and I are 30-year friends. I'm a little bummed I missed his class yesterday. I've been piggybacking in there. Yep. I'm way prettier than Michael.
Matthew, what can we do to protect our personal devices? I know you talked once about have devices for work separate from your devices for your personal life.
Correct. That's a real challenge in corporate America. Nobody wants to carry two phones, right? It's inconvenient. I carry two phones. The problem I see, people's personal lives are usually not as well protected, their personal devices, as well as the company can protect. The amount of money and software and equipment we put behind protecting our systems is pretty vast. But at home, a lot of people still don't use antivirus. I was one of the first adopters to put antivirus on my personal cell phone. I especially in my role, I can't take a risk of getting hit, right? But in general, I highly recommend everybody use Malwarebytes on your phone or Lookout on your phone. And intermingling your personal data with work data also brings up a huge human resources issue. And as future business owners, this will be important to you, right? HR is the bane of our existence as business owners. Human resources is there to protect the company, but it's also there to protect the individual. And it's a fine line to do both, right? So human resources perspective, if I have company data on my personal phone and I become a disgruntled employee, or maybe management didn't think you were doing a job, or even the company's just downsizing and can't keep you and you leave and you have a customer list on your phone, I mean, are you not going to engage with those customers, maybe at another business or on your own? Right? So now you have all my company data on your personal cell phone. That's a problem. Let's say I was let go. I'm just going to hand them my company phone. I'm done. No mess, no fuss, right? And I have to say, especially for young adults, they hate two phones. It's a drag. I get it. I know. But, I'm totally protected, right? Work phone, right? Home phone, I'm protected as well, but I could just give my work phone back and I'd be done. It is a problem. A lot of people also, one of our hard and fast rules at work is you can't bring your personal laptop into the office. A lot of people want to do this too. Oh, well, I have a beautiful new $3,000 iMac. I want to use that at work. No, I don't know what you have on that. I don't know what you do that on your personal time. Sorry. So you can't bring those devices in because I can't protect them.
I think
Make
we have
sense?
questions from Pratik. I hope I pronounced that right. And then Andres, and I hope I pronounced that right.
You pronounced that perfectly. I have a question. So I understand everyone is a threat or in danger of being hacked, but who do hackers usually like focus on? Like what's besides like companies, like what type of people do they focus on?
Well, these days, it used to be in the old days, they would go after individuals, and it's just luck of the draw. But these days, it's way more profitable to go after a company, right? With a ransomware attack, right? If you're in the game for financial gains, then getting your ransomware software out there, getting a company to pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And by the way, the bad guys are cluing in a little bit now, but they used to think, oh, if I get Bitcoin or Ethereum, I can't be traced. Well, that's not true, right? The blockchain log can be interrogated by the FBI, and they can see where your wallet address is, and they can track that to you. In fact, I want to say just 2 months ago, the US government was able to exfiltrate tens of millions of dollars from bad guys out of Russia because they were able to track those wallets. So if you're targeted individually, like I said, I tell our board members this all the time, if somebody's coming after you, you're in tough shape. It's hard to protect everything you have. Look at my house. I have a son and a daughter. They're in their early 20s now, but there's 4 of us at home. We have 60 devices on our network. My doorbell, my cameras, my TVs, my toaster, my vacuum cleaner. My Roomba has AI in it, right? Everything's connected. And so you could probably get into somebody's network if you really wanted to.
So could like a system wipe handle, like, let's say I did get like attacked by a Trojan or something, would it like a factory reset or system wipe, like get rid of it?
Correct. There are some instances where that won't help, where if you get hit with a rootkit. Now, it depends on your operating system as well. Both Windows and the Mac operating systems are stronger at the kernel level than they've ever been. If you're hit with a rootkit attack, we don't hear about those too often, but they still happen. Even if you reload the operating system, it doesn't matter. But basically, wiping your device, of course, absolutely. And if you're really worried, hey, just yank the hard drive and toss it. Hard drives are dirt cheap. Get a new hard drive in there. Of course, if you can't do it yourself, I'm sure everybody knows an IT person that can slap it in and load an OS on it, and you'll be up and running again. If you are hit, that's the first thing I would do is wipe out my machine. I don't even want to try to clean it. It's just not worth the time. In fact, my neighbors know what I do. And so I would get that Sunday afternoon call. Oh, hey, man, I think I've been hacked. I've got this pop-up bomb on my computer. Well, I'm not going to spend 6 hours cleaning your personal computer. Sorry, wipe it out and start over.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And the other question?
Andres, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, so I had a question. No, not really a question, but more like I went to this founders night thing in San Francisco, and I did notice that when I would talk to a lot of big companies or like random people, they had just the thing that you had, where you had one iPhone and then one Android. Now that was like out of curiosity for me, and I didn't know if that was because they had that feeling of they didn't want to catch a virus or they didn't want to get hacked. But I did notice that a lot of tech people use Androids because it was more open than an iPhone.
At our company, Andres, we give our employees iPhones because they are still more secure than an Android phone. But I love the customizability of an Android phone, so that's my personal phone. I have a Google Pixel 6. I'm a pure Google Play guy, but my work phone's an iPhone. Everybody has iPhones here.
Yeah, that's what I noticed, and that was like a cool thing that I went over there because it was
A week doesn't go by when I don't hear an employee say, hey, can I please just use my personal phone? Sorry, no.
Thank you.
You bet. Anybody here been hacked lately they want to share? Anybody, have to deal with the banks because your account got compromised? Everybody here have their right? Everybody here help their parents stay safe?
I've had a prepaid card hacked into before. It was a prepaid card, so like it wasn't too
For the
bad.
most part, yeah.
But yeah.
Anybody here watch The Sopranos? They were pulling a prepaid phone card hack, right? Do you guys ever see that? They would buy these prepaid phone cards. They would sell them for pennies on the dollar to poor people, but then basically they would never pay the telephone company for the actual card. So the money they got from the people was pure profit. They would try to use the card and the card would fail because it was never really paid for. Card scams are everywhere. Anybody here ever have experience with a fake card reader? Those used to be put on gas pumps or at an ATM machine. I haven't seen those much or heard any reporting about those. There was a story out of Europe. Boy, Professor Worsham, I'm running long, so don't
That's
hesitate to
okay.
wait.
Give a couple minutes.
So in Europe, a truck of credit card readers for grocery store was stolen. The bad guys put a wireless chipset on the bottom of the card, the motherboard inside those card readers. So what happened is you'd pay for your groceries, and in Europe, they've had two-factor authentication for credit cards forever. You know how we write our name on the little pad when you pay with your credit card? That is such garbage. First of all, I would never put my real name, my real signature on there because I don't want them to have my signature. What if they get hacked and somebody has a picture of my signature? So I always draw a Mickey Mouse face or just a line. And do the tellers ever check? No, they never check, right? So that's the fact that you have to sign is really so bad. In Europe, though, when you swipe your card, you have to use a PIN. So you have the card, something you have, and your PIN, something you know, two-factor authentication. Well, the wireless chipset on those readers was taking the card number and the PIN number and wirelessly transferring those to a server off-site. So the bad guys had your card. Just by chance, one day a security guard walking through the grocery store, every time he'd pass this one register, his phone would fuzz out a little bit. He was getting interference. So eventually they tracked it down to the card reader. And so they had the manufacturer come look at the card reader and they couldn't find it because the bad guys were clever. They put the bad chipset on the bottom. They finally figured it out. But that was a very clever card hack right there.
I have a question. This actually happened to me I actually have a business and I have a business account and I experienced fraud on my business account. And the only place I ever used the card was the gas station. So what I understand is that there's some little device that they will hide in the reader that will take that magnetic strip information and then they can make fake cards with your information, right? And so I got all of these charges at Forever 21 in Los Angeles. I was like, what? On my business account. So yeah, be aware when you use the card reader, at the gas pumps. That's why I don't even use my card anymore. I just use my Apple Pay and that's it.
Those card readers, the card reader slot's pretty small, but what they'll do is they'll put a device right on top of it that looks like the card reader.
Right.
So it's going through their reader mechanism and then into the pump. So it'll work for you, but they're scamming your card number right off of that, right? And then they come back later and they take the whole device and walk off, right? That's how and sometimes if you've ever seen one loose, hey, that might be somebody's card reader scamming, right? You can just pull them off, right? So that's a biggie, you bet.
What other places could that happen, like besides the gas station? I know a gas station is a popular place.
Yeah, ATMs. And it's usually not the bank ATMs, it's the ones that are in convenience stores.
Okay.
That makes more sense.
Yep. It's
So,
so hard to protect yourself these days. You have to be vigilant.
So Matthew, are you okay with staying on a few minutes after if people
Yes.
have questions?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to drop off or how do you want to do this?
we just have a minute left and I want to make sure I'm respectful of people's time. So if people want to stay a few minutes after to ask more questions, please stay on. But we are at 6 o'clock, so I want to wrap up the Business Beyond the Classroom workshop. But we are asking you to do a favor. So Professor Tran is going to put a link to a survey into the chat, because we'd really like to get your feedback on our this particular workshop, as well as it gives you an opportunity to give us ideas for future workshops so we can better meet your needs. So if you wouldn't mind filling that out, that would be fantastic. So we're going to formally end the workshop. But if you want to stay on a little bit after, it sounds as if Mr. Schmuck is willing to answer some more questions, feel free to do so. But otherwise, everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Super